Overwatch World Cup 2018 showcased some of the best talent this planet has to offer in this game, and throughout the entire weekend we saw some incredible plays and quite a few upsets as well. Let's recap all of the matches that happened this past weekend. Let's see how many teams I jinxed with my predictions this year, shall we? As a person who lives in the United States, I had a lot of optimism coming into this World Cup. I thought that from top to bottom, the United States had a pretty good roster all around. But in the end, our hopes and dreams got crushed yet again in the first round. But it wasn't by South Korea like in 2017 or 2016. It was by the United Kingdom. Are you kidding me? Now, before I move forward, let me say I have to give credit where it's due. The United Kingdom had a very strong World Cup overall. They looked really good. But with that being said, come on, United States. What are you doing? There were plenty of people out there that considered the United States to be the favorites to win the World Cup and to take down the two-time champs, South Korea. But you know what ended up happening? You guys got overconfident and ended up losing to a team that had no business beating you to begin with. I mean, come on. You had them right where you wanted them. You crushed them on the first map on Ilios. You had home crowd advantage going for you, all the momentum in the world, and you let all of it fade away into oblivion as you lose the next 3 maps. And it wasn't even that close either. That's the sad part. You guys made Fusions look like the best main tank to ever play Overwatch. And again, I will give credit where it's due. I think Fusions is a great main tank. He definitely deserves to be in the Overwatch League. But seriously? You're going to let him dominate this much, especially when you have who's considered to be the best Western main tank in Muma? The US kind of made Muma look bad. I'm not going to put a lot of blame onto him. I definitely think Muma could have played better. But for those of you who are roasting him saying that he got completely outplayed by Fusions, you definitely need to take a look at how Overwatch is played. It's a team game, and even Fusions went on his Twitter and talked about this. He said that his partner in crime, Kib, the Brigitte player for the United Kingdom, at least for the most part, was setting him up for some great shatters by using the shield bash to get rid of Muma's shield temporarily. But it's not just the outstanding Brigitte play that allowed Fusions to find so much success on Reinhardt. The rest of the team also had a really good weekend at BlizzCon. I think that showed through the fantastic heals that Fusions was getting and the great coverage he was getting from Zarya bubbles and from D.Va defense matrices. Muma just flat out did not receive the same support. I think that everyone on Team USA just had a really rough showing. I think Hydration played well in the first map, but other than that, he was very inconsistent. I think Sinatra played well on Zarya at times, but again, he was inconsistent on other heroes. I also think that Raucus, Moth, and Space all could have played better as well. No one did great on the United States. Very, very disappointing. After that first map, the UK just outplayed the United States. Plain and simple. They took advantage of the fact that the United States had all the confidence in the world. They thought for sure they'd make it to the second round. They weren't taking the United Kingdom very seriously. And they said, why not give them a bit of a confidence boost in this first map and then turn the tables and absolutely destroy them? If that was their plan, it worked to perfection, let me tell you. Maybe next time, instead of preparing for South Korea in the second round, you'll take your first round opponent more seriously because there are some other good teams out there other than South Korea. I think the United States found that out the hard way this weekend, and they paid for it big time. You don't see the United Kingdom doing that, do you? Or any other team for that matter. The UK was completely focused on the US. They put a lot of prep time into them, and that preparation paid off as they were able to catch the US off guard with how well they played GOATs, and they destroyed them. They steamrolled them after Ilios. I know that we really want to beat South Korea. I understand that. I'm sure that all of the players that played on Team USA this year really wanted to show that they're another country that no one should mess with. They're better than South Korea now. They're ready to take that title away from them. But do you really expect to defeat South Korea when you can't even properly prepare for an opponent that isn't even supposed to defeat you? It just makes no sense. And yeah, I got this one wrong in my predictions. I jinxed the United States, guys. I expected this to be either a 3-0 or 3-1 in favor of the USA, but the UK went out and ended up shocking all of us in one of the biggest upsets in Overwatch World Cup history. For those of you who weren't able to watch Overwatch World Cup, just know that this game was much closer than the score implies. I honestly believe every single map that was played could have gone either way. They were all that close, very hard fought, all the way up until the end, and this was just a really fun match of professional Overwatch to view. There was plenty of hype and drama surrounding this matchup, as XQC has been talking so much trash about the French team over the past month or so, saying that they have no chance of winning this, it's an easy clap, and hey, XQC was right. Well, at least somewhat. He was correct in the sense that his team was able to win, but it wasn't exactly what I call an easy clap. It was a very hard fought battle. If I had to pick one player from this match who had an outstanding performance, it would definitely have to go to Bonnie. The man looked great on Lucio, and he surprised me and I'm sure a lot of other people with how well he played on Zenyatta. I really am impressed with him, as during Overwatch League Season 1, I always thought of him as a mediocre support player, and I considered him to be the biggest weakness of Team Canada, but he proved me and many other people wrong with how great he looked during this World Cup. Oh, and big time shout out to Jane, coach of Team Canada. He made this amazing tweet during their matchup against France. I'll put it up on the screen right now. I really got a kick out of it. Oh, and for those of you wondering, yes, I got this prediction wrong as well. I said France was going to win 3-2. I was way off on this one, huh? Don't underestimate China, they said. They're much better than you think, they said. Man, I wish I listened to you viewers, as I was way off about this matchup between Finland and China. I was certain that Finland would win this one either 3-1 or 3-0. I considered them to be one of the best teams coming into this World Cup, and man was I wrong. China destroyed them in a 3-0, and it really wasn't close. I'm so sorry, China. I'll never underestimate you guys again. It's clear that you have a lot of talented players from your country, and I really hope to see a bunch of them make it into the Overwatch League at some point. I'm honestly so disappointed to see Finland end up losing in the first round. I was really excited about this team this year. They had Taimu, Linkser, plenty of Overwatch League experience to go around. And well, they just didn't perform up to expectations. I'm not going to say they played terribly. They definitely could have played better, but I think they just got outplayed by a better team that they just weren't ready for. As a unit, Team China looked so clean with the way they played during this game. It was so much fun to watch. Their tanks were the ones that impressed me the most during this game, I think, as both Gushue and Late Young were just putting on a show. Gushue looked fantastic on both Winston and Reinhardt, and then Late Young's Diva Bombs were absolutely nutty. They were PogChamp. Although China broke out some crazy strats and interesting team comps that are a little bit different from the norm, you have to give another shout out to Team Finland, as they broke out Symmetra on their attack run on Hanamura. They had Linkser on it, and it was awesome to watch. I was so happy to see Symmetra get some playtime during the World Cup. Even though it wasn't for very long, I was glad she still made an appearance. Alright, last match of the quarterfinals, South Korea versus Australia. I think we all knew how this one would turn out. Regardless of how South Korea's team looked, we knew this one would be an easy 3-0 or 3-1 at the most. There really isn't else much to say about this match because it was so predictable, and it ended up turning out the exact way all of us thought it would. I'm sure that after this dominant performance, some people still had their doubts about South Korea. I know I still did, especially when you consider that they made some last moment roster changes like 2 weeks before the World Cup started by subbing out Meko for Fury, then having Fleta come in for Sabiobi, and then Animo coming in for Arc. And then you also have to add in how Fury was in London with the Spitfire celebrating their championship and just paying recognition to the fans. And also, Fate was in the United States, so everyone was kind of just split up and the practices weren't exactly what I'd call smooth. It also helps that they beat down on arguably the weakest team at the World Cup, so I think it's safe to still have your doubts after this first matchup that things could possibly go wrong for them. And just ending this on one other positive note, this was the one match I got right in the first round of the World Cup. Yay me, I didn't go 0-4, I went 1-3, which still makes me look like a complete idiot and someone that doesn't know anything about Overwatch. I'll be honest with this one. The UK really surprised me. I really thought that this one wouldn't end too well for them and they'd end up getting crushed by South Korea, but man, they put up one hell of a fight, huh? I know it technically only went 4 maps, but they were able to tie South Korea twice in a row. That is a very impressive feat, and they were almost able to win a couple of those maps too. But in the end, the South Korean God Squad was just too much for the UK to handle. Even their insane GOATS comp just wasn't enough, as they'd have Fleta go on to Pharah, and then they'd also break out a counter GOATS comp when necessary as well, and that also seemed to work to perfection. Everyone was making plays on both sides during this matchup, but I think the standout players have to come from South Korea, as Fleta and Animo really played great during this game. Fleta in particular is someone that I'm very proud of for playing so well, because honestly, I didn't even think he was going to get playtime coming into the World Cup. I thought he'd just be the bench player for Sabiobi, and like maybe if Libero or someone got sick, he could sub in, but Libero ended up having 0 playtime. It's clear that Libero just wasn't playing as well as Fleta during practice, so the coach decided to go with the hot hand, and it worked out to perfection. Fleta played outstanding on Pharah and Brig and Hanzo. Whatever he was on, he seemed to do quite well on. And for Animo, I really loved how insane his Lucio was. I honestly thought that he could only play Mercy for the most part after only seeing him play that really in Overwatch League, but he proved why NYXL was thinking about trading Arc away. This dude is nuts on whatever he plays. I think it's safe to say that no one has doubts anymore about the talent that comes from the United Kingdom. And with that being said, I really hope that the amount of British players in the Overwatch League dramatically increases over the next couple of years. One more shout out to the United Kingdom. You guys put on one hell of a run. You should all feel very proud of how well you did. This was a big shocker. I did not think for even a single moment that there was any sort of chance that China would 3-0 Canada. Did I think it was possible they could beat Canada? Yeah, sure, but to 3-0 them in such a dominant fashion? Oh man, I was not ready for this one. I know that China proved they were a good team by 3-0ing Finland, but Canada's a whole different beast, so to 3-0 them as well is really impressive. It's clear that Canada had no idea how to deal with China in the slightest. They looked lost out there. You could tell by looking at the Canadian players' faces. They had no idea how to deal with this. It got so bad to the point where when they were attacking on Temple of Anubis, China spawn camped them for like 2 minutes straight. Surefour even admitted on his Twitter that he had no idea what to do against China, as they weren't letting him do anything that he wanted. They had him shut down the whole match. While it's really disappointing to see Finland and Canada get dominated the way they did against China, it kind of makes sense in a way. I feel like none of these players know much about the Chinese Overwatch scene, and they actually have a lot of good players. It's very clear. I've learned my lesson. I'm not doubting these guys anymore. I'm sure we'll see a bunch of them in Overwatch League at some point. And before I move on to the next match, I have to give a big shout out to Leave, one of the DPS players on Team China, as he popped off during this match against Canada. He looked like an absolute god. He was unstoppable. And yet again, I'm putting up another tweet made by Jane, coach of Team Canada, because he made yet another funny tweet, this time talking about Leave. In the bronze medal match, we saw arguably the closest matchup of the entire weekend, as it was the only game to go all 5 maps. It was definitely one of my favorite matchups to watch, and I'm so happy for Team Canada for getting that bronze medal. They're top 3 medalists for the 2nd year in a row. Congratulations. I really do love this Canadian squad. They have a lot of likable players. I love me some Surefour, Agilities, and XQC. They're always a ton of fun to watch on stage. And you have to give it up for the United Kingdom for being competitive against yet another one of the powerhouse Overwatch countries. Good job, guys. I know you guys didn't win, but you put up one hell of a fight, didn't you? And now it's time for the moment we've all been waiting for, the gold medal match. We have South Korea, the team that's been there the last 2 years, trying to make it a third year in a row where they win the gold medals, versus the newcomers, Team China. How will this one turn out? Well, not as well as a lot of us hoped it would. Deep down, I had this feeling that this match wasn't going to be close in favor of South Korea, and well, it would seem I hit the nail on the hammer with this one, as it was an easy clap 4-0 for South Korea. They are your 3-time Overwatch World Cup champions. They pulled off the three-peat, and it's not a shocker in the slightest. Many people had their doubts about South Korea, including myself. With the sudden roster changes and the lack of practice at times, people thought they were vulnerable. I did too, for a little while at least. It's also important to add in that there were a lot of teams that seemed like they could end up defeating South Korea, or at least give them a serious run for their money. I think most people pointed at the US, Canada, and France as the potential teams to take down South Korea. I think it's perfectly fine to have confidence in some of these non-Korean teams to actually take them down, because after all, most of these guys are in the Overwatch League, and all of Team South Korea is from Overwatch League, so naturally, after facing against these guys for a year or being teammates with them, you learn to adapt to their certain types of playstyles. Unfortunately for some of the favorites to win Overwatch World Cup that weren't South Korea, they never even got a crack at them because they lost in either the first round or were on the other side of the bracket. But in the end, South Korea still reigns supreme as the best country for Overwatch, and even though the gap is closed, it's still very clear to me, at the very least, that they are the best. All hail our South Korean overlords. And hey guys, you know what's great? Even though I got most of my predictions wrong for this World Cup, in the end I was right about one thing at the very least. South Korea won the whole thing. So, one more quick overview of the World Cup. Overall, I thought this was an enjoyable World Cup, but I personally found the 2017 World Cup to be even more fun than this one. The matches were just much closer. Don't get me wrong, there were some fun games, and there were plenty of surprises with teams like China and the United Kingdom pulling off big-time upsets, but still, 2017 just seemed like it had some more evenly matched teams. And that's what we want at the end of the day, right? We want close matches that go back and forth. We don't want blowouts like we got in the gold medal match. But I guess I can't complain too much because this is the only real professional Overwatch we get until Overwatch League and Overwatch Contender starts up. And I think I'm ready to wrap things up now, ladies and gentlemen. So if you're new around here, hit that subscribe button and enable notifications so you don't miss the next Overwatch video. Also, if you enjoyed this content, I'd very much appreciate it if you could hit that like button. And with that being said, I'm out of here. See ya.